What's going on, everybody? A good morning and a happy Tuesday to you all. It is a Grind My Gears Tuesday. A big thanks for tuning in. However, you're tuning in, if it's on the radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM, streaming us online at our website, sportstalk1051.com. Got your smart devices, smart speakers, video streams also up and rolling. YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitch, Instagram. Download the app. Take it on the go here. But if you're making us a part of your starts, a big thanks for that. What do we got on a good old game plan for us this morning? Day one in the books. NFL legal negotiation period for free agents in the books. In the back were some players yesterday. Maybe a couple surprises out there, but first one that was reported, Packers agreeing to a deal with Aaron Banks, offensive guard from the San Francisco 49ers, 4 years, $77 million. And then shortly after that, word came down that the Packers brought in a corner, Nate Hobbs from the Raiders, 4 years, $48 million. So there's your two Packer signings for day one. Your reaction, your thoughts, Packers fans. I want to hear from you. You can hit me up with a text on that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line, 715-830-1912, or comment on the video streams and such. Give me your thoughts on the two new free agents, two new players coming over to Green Bay. Surprise you? Excited? Happy? However you're feeling, let us know. We'll tell you who's left because obviously after day one, a lot of the top, quote unquote, top guys out there signing with teams like Milton Williams going to the Patriots, some of the receivers, Chris Godwin staying with the Buccaneers. But who's left specifically when we're looking at defensive end, defensive line, and wide receivers? We're going to go through a few of these players that are still out there if the Packers are still maybe kind of looking at adding to their defensive front or maybe adding a veteran receiver to their group. So we'll give you some names. Pickings are a little slim now, but these are still some of the guys that are potentially still available for the Pack. And then once we go through some of these names, let me know who, or maybe you already know, but let me know who's still out there that you wouldn't mind Green Bay going out there and getting. Maybe bringing aboard. Okay. So we got that. We'll hit that up coming up here in just a little bit. We're going to talk some Brewers here this morning. Yesterday, Brewers getting in a little spring training action again, picking up a win. Christian Yelich bubble wrap that guy. He had another home run yesterday. Got a couple home runs in just a couple of games and such, but taking down the Mariners 7-5. But I want to talk about a couple of young prospects here for the Brewers when we get to a little baseball chat here this morning. I want to talk about Jefferson Caro, the catcher prospect. Some high praise from his manager, Pat Murphy. Pat Murphy saying, quote, "You guys know that Jefferson Caro is maybe my favorite prospect that's ever been with the Brewers. Having to come back from such a serious injury is daunting, but I believe that if anyone can do it, he can do it. Not too many guys are throwing well with 12 staples in their shoulder, but I've been assured that it can be done, and I'm banking on him." Tell you a little bit about this catching prospect and maybe a future outlook on him too. Also, we've talked about him before, but this dude is, I mean, he's impressing right now, and maybe I don't know if he'll make. He's going to be on the major league roster at some point this season and such, but we got to talk about Craig Yoho, the pitcher for the Brewers, because in his 5 relief appearances this spring, he has pitched 6 innings, giving up 1 hit, 0 runs, 1 walk, 10 Ks. 6 innings pitched, 10 Ks, 1 hit, 1 walk, 0 runs. So we'll talk a little bit about Yoho when we get to some Brewers chats as well. Bucks are back at action tonight. It's going to be taking on the Indiana Pacers. Kind of a big game here too. When you look at the Eastern Conference standings, Bucks holding on to a 1-game lead over both the Pacers and the Detroit Pistons for that 4th spot in the Eastern Conference standings. So Bucks got the Pacers tonight, then they got the Pacers. They got the Lakers squeezed in the middle, then they got the Pacers again. So in terms of seeding, in terms of standings in the Eastern Conference, kind of a big game here for the Bucks looking to bounce back after losing to the Cavs on Sunday. So we'll talk some Bucks, talk a little hoops there. Speaking of hoops, we'll talk some Badgers with Mr. RJ Cardinal coming up in a couple of hours from now. We'll talk about the Badger basketball team as they get set for the conference, Big Ten Conference tournament. We'll talk about the women's team now, going to be looking for a new head coach again for that program. We'll talk some hockey as we start to wrap. Well, we know the men's team's wrapped up, so we'll talk some hockey with that and women's hockey and such. So RJ Cardinal will be joining us at about 8:20, 8:25 here this morning. And of course, it is a Grind My Gears Tuesday. So what's grinding your gears? Okay. Let me know. Get it off your chest. Hit me up with that text at 715-830-1912. Whatever is grinding your gears. But the big news and the lead off for us, we'll talk some green and gold and talk some football. But day 1 of the illegal negotiation period in the NFL in the books. Day 2 coming up here. The official league year opens up tomorrow, where a lot of these trades and these signings will be officially official and such. I want to hear from you though, Packers. Maybe also add in this too. Who was maybe the one free agent signing that you were really hoping for? That you were really, really, really hoping Green Bay was going to sign this guy, and they didn't. That somebody else swooped in, or maybe that player stayed with their current team. Kind of saw that quite a bit, starting on Sunday and then even yesterday, right? I mean, Godwin, Khalil Mack, those type of guys staying with their current teams. So, or maybe you were high on Milton Williams and really hoping Green Bay would get him to boost up your defensive line, and he goes and signs a big deal with the Patriots. So who was that one player that you were just really, really, really hoping for that Green Bay missed out on, or Green Bay didn't sign? Or maybe that guy is still out there. I don't know. Maybe that dude for you is still out there. So that's the case. Well, you can say, hey, that's who I want Green Bay to target. That's who I want right now. So, but let's get your reaction from the 2 signings from yesterday. Aaron Banks, for the offensive line, how is it going to shape up? How is it? Who's going to play where? Be the center for the Packers, and then Nate Hobbs, corner coming from the Raiders. He's the slot corner. However, there's some talk that maybe he won't be playing slot for the Packers. Plus, an update on Jair Alexander and his status with the ball club. So, lots of green and gold chat, a lot of football chats, and then we'll go through maybe the best available yet here is specifically wide receivers and defensive line. If you're still thinking that that's the 2 biggest needs left for Green Bay to address in free agency. So let's get right into it. We'll take our first break, and then the leadoff coming up. Talk some football, free agency. A lot of stuff going down yesterday. We'll talk about the 2 newest Packers coming up next. When pain slows you down, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine gets you moving again. From sports injuries to joint pain and everything else in between, their expert team provides cutting-edge care to keep you active. Whether you need physical therapy, surgery, or a customized treatment plan, they're here to help you heal faster and stronger. Don't let pain hold you back. Trust the specialists at Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine to get you back into the game. All right. Leadoff time. Let's talk some green and gold. Before we get to our best available Packers fans, I want to hear from you. Your thoughts on the two new free agent signings from the green and gold. You can hit me up with a text or comment on the video streams. Your analysis, your expert opinions. I want to hear from you. So looking at the two free agent signings that Green Bay did in day one of the legal negotiation period here. Start off with the first one that was reported: offensive guard Aaron Banks. I'll admit, I was actually I was surprised that Green Bay went and invested in an offensive guard. Green Bay's always big on offensive line and such, but I was a little surprised that they went out and committed $77 million, 4 years, $77 million to an offensive guard. That one kind of came out of left field. I'll be honest with you. And not saying I hate it. I'm not saying I hate it. It just kind of caught me off guard here. And when you look at it, I mean, Aaron Banks, he fits a lot of what Green Bay does. First of all, he's now their biggest off. I mean, he's massive. He's 6'5", he's 325, 320, 330. I've seen a couple of different ones out there. But he's available. He has played a ton in the last few years for the 49ers. Started 43 games. Posted a pass block win rate of 89.9%. and a run block win rate of 66.5%. But this past year, career highs, he had a 91.7 pass block win rate and a 69% run block win rate. And just 3 sacks. He's charged with 3 sacks. So he's a massive, massive human being playing exclusively at left guard. Well, the Packers already have a left guard, Elton Jenkins. Well, according to Tom Silverstein from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, he's hearing that now the plan is that Jenkins will move over to center, where he's kind of has been the backup, de facto backup center. So it sounds like Jenkins is going to move to center. Banks is going to be your left guard. And to me, this is going to be kind of fascinating to see how this group plays out now, because, you've heard head coach Matt LaFleur preach 5 best will play. Well, we know Banks is going to play. We know Elton Jenkins is going to play. And we know Zach Tom is going to play. Those are like your 3 signed, sealed locks. Boom. I'd probably put Rasheed Walker in that category, just maybe a little bit below. And then you got Sean Ryan, but then you got first round pick from last year, Jordan Morgan. So Jordan Morgan's going to play. It's just, where is he going to play? Is he going to play? Are they going to give him a shot at left tackle like they originally said last year after they drafted him? But then after they drafted him and they got into some mini camps and such, he was kind of doing more work at guard. So who's on notice? Is it going to be Sean Ryan, or is it Rasheed Walker? Or maybe is Jordan Morgan still a backup? Jordan Morgan's going to play at some point. Right now, I think it's probably going to be guard. And I think Sean Ryan's maybe the guy I noticed. But remember, Walker and Ryan are also entering the final years of their deal. Packers, I would imagine, are going to lock up Zach Tom. They're going to lock up Zach Tom. So one of those guys, whether it's Walker or Sean Ryan, I would imagine probably going to be entering their final year. Probably not going to be back. And then, you're kind of protecting yourself that way. But back to Aaron Banks. I mean, this, when you look at it, again, it caught me off guard. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. So they're going to spend some money on an offensive lineman. I think we all knew that they were going to maybe look for some depth, whether it was going to be in a draft or maybe some, second tier free agents and such, but to spend some big money on a guard, I was like, oh, okay, they did that. Again, I'm not upset about it. I'm not mad about it. I don't disagree with it. It's just like, okay, I was not expecting that to be the first one. But I think you also look at what Philadelphia probably did to him in the playoff game, and I'm sure that was still living in the minds of Goody and his staff and such. And well, let's face it too, when you look at the NFC and you look at what Chicago's been doing too. I mean, Chicago's boosted up their offensive line. They've completely transformed their offensive line. They've added more defensive line help too. You got to counter that. And I mean, quarterback play is, we know it. Quarterback play, that determines more than anything whether you're going to make deep advances into the postseason, get to the championship, protect the quarterback. And then also, I mean, Banks with his run block, I mean, how massive he is. I was watching some of the film from, I think it was Brian Baldinger, going back to some old film stuff he was doing with the 49ers. And, we know the 49ers like to run the ball, and they ran the ball behind Banks quite a bit, Josh Jacobs and such. So it makes sense. It's a signing that when you look at it, it makes sense for Green Bay. You can still say it's surprising, like, oh, wow, okay. But when you look at it, take a step back, it's like, okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think just for me, again, it's going to be what's that 5 going to look like for this year? How do they factor in Jordan Morgan? Do they view him more as a guard, or are they going to give him a shot at tackle? I don't know, but hey, you got depth. You got depth on the offensive line. Not a bad thing. Nate Hobbs, corner from the Raiders. This was a guy, so yesterday when we did, some 5 guys to pay attention, this was a guy that I was contemplating putting in my top 5, but ultimately I decided to keep him off because the one thing I thought might have been a determining factor for him was injuries. He's missed 17 games over the last 4 years, I believe it has. So he's missed some time, and I thought, okay, corner, Jair, they're frustrated with him with injuries. You got another corner, that's missed some time over the years. Would that be a play? But apparently it wasn't. And you look at him, he's primarily, when he's played with the Raiders, been a nickel corner, played a slot corner, and he's been a really good run defender. Been seeing a lot of Raiders fans, and I even had some reach out to me on social media saying they love the guy. Like, they love his mindset and they love him. The only thing that the only down part of his game, or the down part of him, was that he has missed quite a bit of time due to injuries and such. So that's the only downfall. But Raider fans love the guy, from what I've heard, from what Raider fans have told me. And the interesting part of this saw some reports out there that the Packers actually plan on making him a perimeter corner playing on the outside, which I'll be curious to see if that actually happens. If they do that, because I mean, again, he has primarily played nickel and slot, and we know how important that position has been, especially in the last couple of years, last few years, across the league. Yeah, this was from Ryan Wood, who covers the Packers. Nate Hobbs was a slot corner with the Raiders, but source said the expectation is he will play the perimeter corner. And he's got the size to do it. I mean, he's 6 foot. He's just a shade under 200 pounds. So he has the size to move on the outside, and he has played a little bit. But, I would be curious if they get into those nickel situations. Does he slide in the inside? Maybe in a base, is he the outside corner with like a Keyshawn? And then when they slide into that nickel, does he go in there into the middle? So it could just be something like that. But I think what this signing also shows too is we saw last year again with injuries to the secondary, where Jeff Hafley, had to shuffle a lot of stuff around, right? When Jair went out, or when it was a safety that went out, like Evan Williams, they had to shuffle quite a bit of stuff around. And it really affected the way they played defense in the back end. Now you bring in a guy who's got the versatility to play inside, outside, We know Keyshawn can play inside, outside. Javon Bullard can play slot corner, safety. You got some position versatility now with some of your secondary members that maybe doesn't handcuff Jeff Hafley or just kind of throw everything out the window for his defense when one injury can kind of derail everything. Because how many times in last season did we see where one injury to the secondary had such a huge trickle-down effect for this team that it really affected their play? You know, Evan Williams is out. Javon Bullard has to move from the slot role and playing back safety. You had issues over there. I mean, you had, you know, a corner issue. It was kind of a mess, and you kind of felt like, okay, you know, Hafley's got to scrap his plan when maybe in what he wants to do, and especially when it comes to the run game and Hafley's style of defense. That nickel corner, that slot corner is so important, so vital to helping stop the run. And now you got a guy over there he's got some good numbers and stopping the run. So again, outside the injuries, which is a concern. I mean, it's still a concern, but outside of that, it's a signing that makes all the sense in the world. You got the versatility and the experience of a guy that's played a ton on the inside, but he could go on the outside too. So does that mean less playing time for a guy like Javon Bullard in that slot role? Probably, possibly. But now you got depth, because if you do have an injury, because chances are you're going to, odds are you're going to, you got one guy that's going to be out. You've got some versatility. You've got more depth there where it won't just, you know, kind of screw up your whole defensive game plan now. So both these signings of Banks and Hobbs may not have been the names that we kept hearing about or the names that were at the top of our wish list. May not be the sexiest names out there, but they make a ton of sense. They make a ton of sense for Green Bay, and they fit what Green Bay wants to do or what their mindset is. It makes a ton of sense in the world when you take a step back and look at it. However, now, if you were a fan or if you're still a person that believes that, okay, they still need a wide receiver and they still need a defensive lineman or an edge rusher, you know, there was a lot of guys that got picked up yesterday, okay? And the pickings might be a little bit slim. That's just the way it is, right? I mean, day one and such. So who else is left out there? Who else is out there when it comes to some other potential targets for the Packers if they are, in fact, going to be looking at a wide receiver or a defensive lineman? So these are some of the names. Some you're going to probably recognize. Some you may not be too familiar. I'm not going to go with every single defensive lineman or wide receiver out there, but these are maybe the top ones, the best available. Okay. The ageless wonder, Calais Campbell, is still out there, defensive lineman, if you want to go for a veteran who's approaching 40. You've got DeMarcus Lawrence, edge rusher for the Cowboys. The thing that would pause me about Lawrence, he's coming off an injury, but he's coming off that Liz Frank injury. And we were just talking about that with Dr. Crow, and we've talked about that with Dr. Crow, that type of injury before. But that's the injury in the foot that can end careers. That's the injury that players struggle big time to come back from. So if it were me, okay, DeMarcus Lawrence, that's a name. He's had success, but that injury would, in my opinion, take him off the list. Maybe, if you bring him in, I think rotational player at best, pass rusher at best, but big money, no thanks. Dante Fowler. Now, this guy has been around for a while. I mean, Brad and I have talked about him because we went to the draft in Chicago the first year there. He was, third overall pick by Jacksonville. That he gets hurt right away. He's still in the league. And I think even after that injury, the guy has been, he missed his rookie year. He's, for the most part, been pretty darn healthy. 2016, 16 games, 16 games, 15 games. Then in 18-19, 7 and 8 games. But since then, 16 games, 14 games, 14 games, 17 games, 17 games. Last year, 17 games. Not necessarily a starter, but as a rotational piece. But I think, I'll be honest too, last year he's coming off 10.5 sacks. Coming off 10.5 sacks for Washington. To me, he's probably your designated pass rusher, but is that an option that could be there for Green Bay if they're looking at, okay, we need help getting after the quarterback? What about Dante Fowler Jr., bringing him in as a pass rush specialist? Again, he's not necessarily a full-time starter, and he's kind of traveled all around. I mean, Washington last year, 2 years with Dallas, couple years with Atlanta, couple years with the Rams. Maybe a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal, but he's going to be your designated pass rushing specialist. That could be an option. I mean, Joey Bosa is still out there. If you think about it, if you want to try to find some connections with Joey Bosa, remember the Packers passing game coordinator, their secondary coach, Derek Ansley Jr., was defensive coordinator with the Chargers for 1 year when Joey Bosa was over there. So, I mean, there is a little bit of a connection. But Joey Bosa is over there. I mean, you've got Javon Hargrave. Again, a lot of these guys are veterans. A lot of these guys are going to be veterans, 30s, mid-30s. So maybe some of these guys, especially the veterans, are rotational guys, not necessarily going to get you 3-down plays, 4-down players. Might be, early downs to help and stop the run. Might be later downs to get after the quarterback. Jonathan Allen, defensive tackle, that apparently was visiting with the Vikings. Got cut by the Commanders earlier on. Could he be an option? And now I'm going to give you a couple of names that you're maybe not too familiar with. But let's start with somebody that's within the division. Levi Onwuzurike, the Detroit Lions. Now, he's coming off of 16 games, started 10 of those games last year for Detroit. 2022, he didn't play. He had an injured back. His rookie years in 2021, he played in 16 games. But last year, you look at the numbers, he's not a big sack guy, 1.5 sacks last year. Okay. But he's still young. He's 27 years old, just turned 27 years old. Is that a guy that Green Bay could, again, bring in as maybe a rotational pass rusher? Possibly. Green Bay's got to be pretty darn familiar with him, right? Because of being in the division. So I'm sure Green Bay is very familiar with him. But you maybe look at some of his injury history out there. I was reading a little bit from Greg Rosenthal when it comes to him. He has been plagued with back injuries for much of his career, improved his durability and consistency last year, and was a Dan Campbell favorite. A good, young, rotational lineman. Again, how much is he going to cost, though? Some other dudes. We've got from the Giants, Azeez Ojulari. Azeez Ojulari. Now, he has been with the Giants the last few years. He's only 24 years old right now. He's going to turn 25 in June, but he has got 4 years under his belt. 2021, when he was a rookie, 8 sacks, then 5.5 sacks, then 2.5 sacks, then 6 sacks this past year. Again, maybe a rotational, situational pass rusher, edge rusher. He can, he struggles a little bit in stopping the run, but he has had success going after the quarterback. The other thing, though, with him, he may be a little small. I mean, he's listed at 6'3", 240, 245. But again, if he's just a situational pass rusher as a part of that rotation where you bring him on third downs or obvious passing situations, maybe that's when you bring him in. But again, size. Does he fit that defensive front for Green Bay? Another one. Going to the Chiefs, Charles Omenihu. Now he's a little bit bigger. You're talking 6'5", 280 pounds. Has been in the league since 2019. Started off with Houston. Spent a couple years with the 49ers. The last couple of years with the Chiefs. This past year, though, he only played 6 games. Injuries, suspensions. So, I mean, that might be kind of maybe deterrent, if you will. He violated the league's personal conduct policy. He's had serious injuries in the past, but he was able to get on the field this past year a little bit for the Chiefs. And then 2 years ago, when you look at his first year with the Chiefs, he did have 7 sacks. Maybe that's again part of a rotation piece for Green Bay. And then this guy named Anthony Nelson, who has played with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the last few seasons. Since 2019. Okay, 2019. He played 9 games, 0 sacks. But 2020, he played 16 games, then 17 games, and 17, then 16, then 17. And in his last few years, so last year he had 4 sacks. The year before that, 3 sacks. 5.5, 5. Again, numbers that don't jump out to you. But he is a big human being. He is listed at 6'7", 271 pounds. Maybe more, again, rotational player. And this, if you're not familiar with him, when I tell you where he's from, you'd be like, no, we don't need another version of that. He is from Iowa. So I know some people are going to say, oh, okay, older version of Lucas Van Ness. But I think when you look at these defensive linemen, defensive ends, and you look at that, Green Bay didn't get one of the high-priced players out there. Maybe it's evident, or maybe that shows us that Green Bay is just looking for a guy to add to the rotation, looking for somebody that they can bring in on early pass rush or on obvious pass rushing situations or on third downs. And they're not wanting to commit a ton of money to a defensive lineman. Not saying I agree, not saying that's what I would do, but think after, some of the signings out there and seeing who's available, I think that might be the approach Green Bay is looking. That they're going to be looking for more depth, and they're going to be looking for more guys to add to the rotation, maybe some veterans to add to the rotation. And maybe it's more of those guys who are just like your pass rush specialists, guys that you put out there on those third downs or on those obvious pass rushing situations. I think that's kind of evident right now. And maybe still looking at the draft. Same could be kind of said for the wide receivers. Because when you look at the guys who are available, I mean, they're veterans. Maybe some guys who are past their prime, not necessarily number 1 options anymore. Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs coming off an ACL, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Lockett, Brandon Cooks. Tyler Boyd's out there. He's a little bit younger yet, bigger wide receiver. He spent time with Tennessee, but, I mean, how much do you factor in what Tyler Boyd did because of the situation he was in? You look at what he did with Cincinnati, and, I mean, those were solid numbers, right? I mean, his last year in Cincinnati, playing essentially behind Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, 667 yards. 18-19, he did have over 1,000 yards. This year, played 16 games for Tennessee, just 390 yards receiving and no touchdowns. But how much do you factor in? Okay, Tennessee was awful. Do you give him a shot? Again, he's 6'2", over 200 pounds. Maybe he comes in. Maybe you can get him for 1 year or a couple of years. He's that veteran guy that can, you can add to your room, guy who's been in the league since 2016, but he's not going to be a number 1. He's not going to be a number 1 like a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson or a Chris Godwin or whoever. But maybe you could get him on the cheap a little bit. Maybe it's a guy like Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, feels like Elijah Moore, who has been around for a long time. I don't know why, but he's only 24 years old. He'll actually be 25 here this month. Still young, played 4 years in the league, first 2 years with the Jets, last couple of years with the Browns. You look at the numbers, I mean, they're not eye-popping. He hasn't gone over 1,000 yards. The most he's had is 640 in 2023. He's 5'10", but he's a guy that still gets open. And you kind of wonder, okay, if this is a guy that gets put into the right offensive system, is this a guy that could do some damage? Like, to me, Elijah Moore feels like the perfect guy that would sign a one-year deal with an offense that properly utilizes him, and he could cash in because he's still young. He can go out there, begin the season at the age of 25, sign a one-year deal with an offense that puts him in the right position to succeed, and he can maybe make some cash. Last 3 years, 16 games, 17 games, 17 games. Doesn't fill the size void that is left by a guy like Christian Watson. Because you're going to be missing that size. You're going to be missing that down the field threat. But this is a guy that maybe you could throw in the slot and really kind of attack the middle of the field with him, Jaden Reed, and Tucker Kraft. Or do you go with, maybe you really want to prioritize a veteran on a one-year deal, a Keenan Allen, an Amari Cooper, a Tyler Lockett, Brandon Cooks. Does he have anything? I mean, this is a guy that's been across the league almost how many? I mean, he's with what? The Saints, Patriots, Rams, Texans, Dallas. He's been in the league since 2014. Okay. He'll be 32 when the season starts. Last year was easily his worst season, just playing 10 games. But again, is he a guy that, okay, put him in the system and he would have better numbers? Maybe bringing in a veteran that way. So, for some of these guys or from these two positions that, we were in the early parts of free agency saying, oh, DK or Devontae or, defensive edges like Khalil Mack or maybe trading for these guys. Now you look at what's left from a free agency standpoint. It's like, okay, so it sure looks like Green Bay didn't want to invest long-term and big money into a wide receiver or into an edge rusher, that maybe they just want to add some veteran pieces as part of the rotation with that. That's kind of what it seems like right now. And if it were me, if I had to pick, one from each side here, I'm kind of intrigued with the Tyler Boyd, bringing him in on a 1 or maybe even a 2-year deal, but maybe it's something that you can move on after a year. I'm intrigued with that. You're bringing in some size, and maybe for a guy that's trying to kind of like get into an offensive system that he can boost up his number so he can cash in a little bit more. I'm intrigued with Elijah Moore, though, too. It's a little bit smaller, but I mean, Tom Brady won some Super Bowls with using some small receivers and utilizing the tight end more. So Boyd and Elijah Moore, I'm kind of intrigued with. On the defensive side, I'm intrigued with Dante Fowler, bringing him in as just your pass rush specialist. Jonathan Allen, I'd be intrigued with that too, because the Packers did lose TJ Slayton. So I don't know if they would necessarily, I mean, he was your run stopper. He was the early down defensive lineman. He's going to the Bengals. But I feel like that's a guy that maybe you can get in a draft, or if you're looking for a bigger kind of nose tackle type of player, a guy that's just strictly going to play on rushing downs. I feel like that might be somebody you can get maybe in a draft. And because if I want Green Bay to get a passer, I want a guy, if I had to pick between the two about getting a run stopper that's going to play in the early downs, or maybe a guy that you bring in to get after the quarterback, I kind of want to be the guy that goes after the quarterback. So I guess on this list, if I'm picking, I guess 2 on each side, I'm intrigued with Dante and I'm intrigued with Bosa and Jonathan Allen. See, okay, those 3 from the defense side. I'd be good with either of those 3. I think Allen's probably more, Jonathan Allen's probably a guy that can play more of the 3 downs, whereas Joey Bosa, you're probably pass rusher, part of the rotation, trying to preserve his health. Same with Dante Fowler. He's straight up just a pass rush specialist. And then again, on the receiver side, I'm intrigued with Tyler Boyd and Elijah Moore. Your thoughts? Let us know. Hit me up with a text 715-830-1912. Quick break, and then we'll finish up the first hour coming up after these quick words. coming up next Friday, we're going to be hanging out at the VFW Post at 305 on Star Avenue, watching some hoops. It'll be the second day of the tourney, first day for some of those teams, first round getting going and such. So if you're looking for a location to watch some of the games and hang out with us, we got some free Man Cave Light until it's gone. Head over with us at the VFW Post at 305 next Friday, March 21st. Might even have some new items, some new sports talk items to be given away and handing out too. So put that on the calendars again next Friday. VFW Post 305 on Star Avenue. Yesterday, also just a quick note on Jair Alexander. Rob Domofsky, our good friend Rob Domofsky, noted that it was kind of an interesting phrasing of what a source told him about Jair Alexander. At this point, this was from Rob's tweet. At this point, cornerback Jair Alexander remains a member of the Packers. A source said Packers GM Brian Gutekunst is, quote, not moving him yet. It remains to be seen what happens if they don't trade him and whether that would lead to his outright release. A couple texts. Dave says, is Darius Slay an option for defensive back? I believe got let go. I don't think he's been officially let go yet, but there's reports that he's already going to sign with Pittsburgh. So, I mean, I don't know, is defensive back still a big need, big priority in free agency to spend more money after the Hobbs now? I mean, I think probably draft, you still get a corner over there, but you're about 4 deep now with your corners. So, Steve says, I'm not saying I disagree with the bank signing, but what concerns me is the talk about moving Jenkins to center. Jenkins is the most versatile lineman we've had in years, and for as rare as it is to have a guy who can play every position on the line, if there is one position where you do not want to pigeonhole a player like that, it's center. I sort of disagree. Remember, Jenkins, the majority of his playing time in college was at center at Mississippi State. And in that 2019 draft, Mel Kiper Jr. actually rated him the number 1 center in that draft. So you look at that, and he has been the de facto backup center for the Packers. So, and we know how important that center position is calling out the signals, calling out the blitz, the Mike linebacker, and that. So, I don't know if I would say pigeonhole is the right way to phrase it. I think it's an super uber important position, and Elton Jenkins, I think right now, given everything else, is probably the best man for the job. And it's not like he's going in with no experience. Again, that was his main spot when he was in college at Mississippi State. So he's kind of going back to that spot. Yeah, he's definitely versatile and can play a lot of spots. Remember, they tried him at right tackle, and that didn't work out. And then luckily they found a guy like Zach Tom, who also is pretty darn versatile. Zach Tom could play center, because there's some talk about that. He could play left tackle. He's done that. He could play guard. He's done that. And he's making himself a lot of money at that right tackle spot too. So don't forget, Zach Tom's pretty dang versatile himself, like a lot of those linemen on that front. So, all right. So we'll get back to some more of your thoughts and texts. Let's finish up with Morgs. Good morning, Morgs.
Did you guys do dress-up days when you had school, like homecoming week, that kind of thing? Anything like that where you had designated days to dress up, like color day or team day or something like that?
I'm sure we did, but I never participated.
What? Okay.
Why would I?
Siggy's doing this week, and I only asked this because
is it homecoming in spring or something?
They're doing like a cabin fever thing.
Oh, okay.
So yesterday was Jersey Day.
Okay.
So she pulled out a Packers jersey. Today is Decades or Celebrity Day. Now, do you have a celebrity that you would dress as? Like, say we did this as adults, like just designated work dress-up weeks. First of all, starting at Monday, we're going to walk through it this week and see what you would pick. What would be the jersey that you would wear for Jersey Day if we were doing
Jersey
this
Day
as adults in the workplace?
I would do Don Hudson. Excuse me. I was just having a brain fart there.
Yeah.
For Jersey. Yeah, Don Hudson.
Okay, I'm not surprised. That's what I figured you would do.
Yep.
What about if you had today's dress-up theme is Decades or Celebrity? I'm going to have you pick one from both, because right now, like that middle school age, the novelty is 90s. which is basically my whole closet.
I would
Like,
wear wind pants and wind jackets.
would you go like full on matching tracksuit, like
yeah.
old school Ben
Yeah.
Affleck?
Like the weird green and purple and all that. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The Charlotte Hornet colors were real
Yeah.
big.
Yep.
Okay, so you
Yep.
would go swoosh for sure.
Mhm.
What about celebrity? If you were dressing up as a celebrity, obviously
So it would have to be a celebrity when I was a kid?
anything you want.
Okay.
We're doing it now. Like you could pick whatever celebrity you wanted to go as.
Matthew McConaughey.
All right, all right, all right.
I don't know.
From what era? Like Dazed and Confused,
No.
or more like?
More like True Detective.
Oh yeah, okay, I could see that.
Yeah.
Now tomorrow, this is kind of fun. They're doing a group, and I'll tell you tomorrow when I come in what the group she put together was. But they had to do like either twins or group or get together like a crew. So think about what you would do for that if we were doing it in the office.
You got her.
And I'll unveil what the plan is.
Homework assignment.
It is a homework assignment.
All right. I like it.
All right, pop quiz.
All right.
Tomorrow. Same
Thanks,
time,
Morgs.
same bat channel.
1 hour in. We got a couple more to go. We'll talk some more football, but also some Brewers baseball coming up after these news updates. Second hour kicking off right now on this Tuesday morning. Coming up, we're going to talk some baseball. Brewers inching closer and closer to opening day. But we're going to talk about a couple of young prospects and a little Christian Yelich talk. So that'll be coming up here in a little bit. We've got some hoops as well. We'll talk some Badgers with RJ Cardinal in a little over an hour from now. Badger women's basketball team is going to be looking for a new head coach. We'll talk some hockey as with them too. So it's coming up in about 8:20 this morning. Gmail a little bit earlier said, way to go, DK, way to go, Pack. 2 players will help us. What's grinding my gears is the Bucks and how they played the last 2 games. Don't forget, it is a grind my gears. So what's grinding your gears? Send those on over. Smuck says, if I'm Goody, I call X and ask him about his former Giants teammates Aziz and Darius Slayton. Aziz is a Georgia Bulldog, which seems to have an affinity for. Slayton has good size and should be cheap. Well, can't be Darius Slayton anymore, Smuck. He signed yesterday with the Giants. So, yesterday we were talking about Darius Slayton, but yeah, he re-signed with the Giants. So Slayton's out. Slayton's out. Another person that's out is Jonathan Allen. Just during the break, reported that he has signed with the Minnesota Vikings. 3 years, $60 million. 3 years, $60 million. So Jonathan Allen, the former defensive lineman for the Commanders, now going to the Vikings. So the signings have begun, or I shouldn't say they're not official yet, but the deals or reports, if you will, have begun for day 2. Giants also apparently signing safety Javon Holland to a 3-year deal, a little over $45 million. So we'll see, too. There's one big name out there that we may find out today where he's going, and it could be one Aaron Charles Rodgers. Some talk that might be today that he goes and plays for Pittsburgh. It seems like the Giants are still trying to get him to. Remember, Packers and Steelers do play this year, but that's also the game that has been rumored that will be the game in Ireland. Part of me wonders if Aaron does decide to sign with the Steelers, would the NFL do a quick, 180 and say, okay, we're not going to send the Packers to Ireland to play the Steelers. This is too big of a game. We're going to put that on like a Sunday night, Monday night, Amazon, whatever the case may be. I don't know. But yeah, if Rodgers plays or if Rodgers signs with the Steelers, we're going to get Packers versus Aaron Rodgers this upcoming season, and it might be overseas too. So, but keep your football talks coming. Looks like we got a couple here before I switch gears just a little bit. But Ben saying, love the Packers signings, beefing up the offensive line, getting depth in the secondary. I love how some Packers fans clamor for this team to sign free agents, and that's what Goody has been doing in the last couple of years, yet they're still finding ways to complain about it. Another texter saying, solid signings, would still like them to get a pass rusher as part of the rotation and a veteran receiver on the cheap to add some more depth at those positions. That's from Eric on our texting line. All right, keep those coming. We'll get back to some more texts coming up here in just a little bit. Hoops-wise, Bucks are back in action tonight as they will be taking on the Indiana Pacers as the final quarter of the regular season is officially underway in the NBA, and the Bucks are coming off of a loss against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Sunday night. And this Bucks team, actually 2 straight losses because Cleveland and then Orlando beforehand. So Bucks looking to get back to their winning ways, if you will. And this is a big game in terms of how things are shaping up to be in the Eastern Conference standings, because Bucks are holding on to that 4 spot. They're 4.5 games behind the Knicks for that 3rd spot, but the Pacers and the Pistons are breathing down the necks of the Bucks right now, because both the Pacers and the Pistons are one game behind the Bucks for that 4th spot. The 4th spot's critical if you want a home court series for the first round of the postseason. It's critical for that aspect. And the Bucks, by far, have been a better team at home. That's the case for a lot of teams. But it's a clear advantage for the Bucks for being at home. 21-11 home record so far this year, 14-16 on the road. So that's at stake. And they also play the Pacers a little bit later on this week. So, I mean, we talked about it. The Cavs game kind of kicked off a big stretch of the schedule, a very tough schedule for the Bucks, pretty much for the rest of the month of March. So you've got the Pacers, then they've got the Lakers. I know LeBron's going to be out for that one, but you got the Lakers in there, and then you got the Pacers again on Saturday, and then right after that you got OKC. Then you start your West Coast trip where you take on Golden State, and then the Lakers, and then Sacramento, and then Phoenix, and then Denver. Again, those are all on the road, and then you come back home on the 28th to face the Knicks. I mean, that's a tough schedule. That's a brutal portion of the schedule to finish up the regular final quarter of the regular season. So, but back to the Pacers and their standings for the Eastern Conference, they're holding on to this 1-game lead over the Pacers and Pistons, and they've got 4 games left between these two. The 2 against the Pacers coming up here this week, and then the final 2 games of the regular season are against the Pistons. So these are big games for the Bucks. If they want that 4 seed, at least bare minimum, that 4 seed in the Eastern Conference standings. If they want that, they've got to win these games, especially when you're looking at their upcoming schedule, where wins, hate to say it, might be kind of tough to come by. And since we're on the Bucks, that is what's grinding my gears this morning. What's grinding my gears is this Bucks team, because you've got Giannis and you've got Dame doing their part. You've got two of the better players in this league, and you've got Giannis, who is playing at, you can make the argument, maybe playing the best basketball of any, statistically best basketball than maybe some of his other couple MVP years. I mean, the guy is playing lights out, and he's doing it on both ends. And we know what Dame can do. But this team is just 9 games above 500, 36-27, and they have not beaten at all this year the Cavs, the Celtics, or the Knicks, the 3 teams ahead of them in the Eastern Conference. And that, to me, is like, they will win 1 series in the postseason right now, and that's it. And it's disappointing because you have this team with Giannis and you have this team with Dame. I wish we were talking about this is a team that can compete for a championship. I don't think they can. I don't think they can compete. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope they go on a run, and I hope once they get to the postseason, they get hot. Maybe they could do a little bit of what maybe Dallas did last year and such. But right now, I just don't see it, and it's frustrating because they've got Giannis and because they've got Dame. But they can't beat. Facts are facts. They have it. They can't beat the Celtics. They can't beat the Cavs, and they can't beat the Knicks. And why is that? Because they need more than just Giannis and Dame. They need more consistency behind those two. Look at how deep. The Cavs are when you've got like half dozen players averaging double-digit figures. We know the Celtics are deep, for crying out loud. Tatum, Brown, Drew Holiday, Porzingis, Hauser, shout out local kid. Same with the Knicks. They're deep. And this Bucks team cannot afford to not have Giannis and Dame on the court. They can't, because they don't have that consistent third option or fourth option. You'd like it to be Kyle Kuzma, but the consistency hasn't just been there yet. Kyle Kuzma's been a nice pickup. He's been a really good pickup for the Bucks at the trade deadline. But is he a third consistent option where, okay, you can give a little bit of a breather to Giannis or Dame, and then he can be the go-to guy. I don't think he's shown that at a consistency level yet. So this Bucks team, just in my opinion, is not deep enough to compete for a championship this year. And that's the frustrating part because you've got Giannis playing at such a high level, and you've got Dame, for his age, playing at a good level too. So that's what's grinding my gears. All right, we got to take a quick break, and then we're going to switch gears and talk some baseball. I want to talk a little baseball here this morning. Bubble wrap Christian Yelich, another home run for him. That's 2 home runs in the last couple of days for Yelich. So just bubble wrap that guy and get him back to Milwaukee. But we're going to talk about a couple of younger players. One that we may see sooner rather than later as part of the big league club. One, it's going to be a little bit yet, but some high praise from Pat Murphy. We'll tell you who those two are after we take this quick break. Continue to send me your thoughts, Packers fans, on the free agent signings from yesterday. What do you think about them? Give me your expert analysis. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Registration's now open for the 5th annual Casper Classic being held on Friday, August 1st at Lake Hallie Golf Course. Beautiful Lake Hallie Golf Course. I gotta send you the link though, because if you weren't you're not a member of the Sports Talk Nation or the Fan Cave, excuse me, the 715 Fan Cave on our website, you probably didn't get the email. So we're giving them first chances to sign up. But if you're listening right now and you didn't get that email, if you're not a member, I'll text you the link too, just because I'm in a good mood with NFL free agency. So if you want to sign up, and a big thanks to everybody who has signed up so far. But if you want to sign up, same thing as always, just still $90, 9 holes, 2 teams, scramble. Pretty much everything's the same. So if you want your chance to win the title belts this year, let me know. Hit me up with a text, and I'll send you the link to sign up your 2-person team. Otherwise, it'll be available probably next week. But we're getting our 715 Fan Cave members a chance to sign up first. So again, big thanks to everybody who's already signed up. Moving on. It's moving fast. I like it. Okay, let's talk a little baseball here this morning with the Brewers continuing spring training yesterday, defeating the Mariners. Yelly with another home run. Good to see the swing. Looks good for Yelich. I think, although I'm probably not the only one that thinks this, but every time he swings a bat, I get a little nervous with the back, just like, please hold up. Please hold up. But he played the field, got 3 at-bats, collected a couple of hits yesterday, including that home run. Jackson Cheerio also getting the start in center field. He collected a couple of hits. Cheerio's been swinging the bat well in spring training, too. I mean, his OPS is a 984. He's up to a 391 average. So good to see that. And then I know these averages don't take up to the bank because the ABs, the at-bats aren't, like there's not a lot of them. So the numbers could be skewed and such. But you look at Cheerio, you look at Contreras, you look at Garrett Mitchell, heck, even Rhys Hoskins has been having a good spring. I mean, if he could be that guy that provides that pop, he's got 4 home runs so far in spring training. That'd be a nice boost for that lineup. We keep talking about who's going to be the power guy, who's going to be the guy that's going to provide, that home run threat. If that could be Rhys Hoskins and he can do that this year, man, that would be such a welcome addition or welcome boost. Ortiz has even been hitting the ball really well. So can we carry this over into the regular season? Don't waste up all the good mojo so far with this Brewers team. But couple of guys I want to talk about. One guy that we got to see yesterday, and we've seen at various points in spring training. He's pitched in 5 games so far for the Brewers in spring training. And last year, he spent time at high A ball, double A, and triple A. I mean, he was making the waves or making the jumps in minor league baseball last year. And this is a guy that I think we're going to see at some point this year. If he doesn't make the opening day roster, I think we're going to see him at some point this year, and that's relief pitcher Craig Yoho. And we've talked about him before. Brandon's talked about him before, even talked a little bit about him last year. But what he has done so far in spring training has been pretty darn impressive. In those 5 games, he's pitched 6 innings. He's struck out 10. He has not given up a run. Hasn't issued a walk and given up a hit. I mean, the guy has been uber impressive so far. So keep that name. Maybe if you've heard it a little bit off and on and it just hasn't, been planted in your Brewers memory or your Brewers fandom yet, know this guy. Keep him in the mind, because if he doesn't make the opening day roster, this is going to be a guy that is going to be on the major league roster, and I'm excited to see his potential, what he could do for this team. And again, he's going to be a relief pitcher. He's not a starter, not working out as a starter or anything, but this guy is off to, he's having a really, really good spring training, and, maybe making some of the decisions a little bit difficult. We knew the Brewers, maybe one of their strengths was pitching and their bullpen. But now you got this guy who's maybe making it a little bit more difficult for the Brewers. Be like, hey, got to find a spot for me. But Craig Yoho, dude's been pretty nasty so far in spring training. Also, we've got one player that we're not going to see this year, but he got some high praise from Pat Murphy. Got some high praise from Pat Murphy the other day, and that's catching prospect. Excuse me, thought we had a Packer thing, but we don't. But we got a catching prospect, Jefferson Carroll. Now, he's only 22 years old. He's one of the top prospects for the Brewers. He missed all of last season after, and this just makes me cringe on how the Brewers describe this, shredding his throwing shoulder on a dive back into first base on opening day at AAA. And he was already yesterday involved in the latest round of camp cuts. But Pat Murphy said yesterday, you guys know that Jefferson Carroll is maybe my favorite prospect that's ever been with the Brewers. Think about that. That's high praise. Not just the last 2 years when Pat Murphy's been the manager, but Pat Murphy's going into his 10th season with the Brewers. And for the guy to say he's my favorite prospect, that's some high praise. He went on to say, quote, having to come back from such a serious injury is daunting, but I believe that if anyone can do it, he can do it. Not too many guys are throwing well with 12 staples in their shoulder, but I've been assured that it can be done, and I'm banking on him. Murphy went on to say about some, high. If this was the quote that really stood out to me. If this kid gets his throwing back to 70%, we have a big leaguer. If he gets it all the way back, we have an all-star. So I know there's probably a lot of Brewers fans saying, well, we already got a young catcher by the guy name of Contreras. This is why I think they're gonna, with Caro coming back from that serious shoulder injury, they're gonna be patient with him. And they're gonna work this way through. There's not gonna be for him. But definitely, we've heard, and this is a guy I think, Brewers fans, and we've heard his name thrown out there, mentioned as a top prospect for the last year or so. And with his injury last year, it kind of, there was some talk, could he be a backup catcher or maybe make the big league club at some point and provide some depth there. But, with the way that Contreras has been playing and how important he is to this team, and now with his injury, Brewers can be patient with him. He could be patient with him. But, I hate to say this, does that make Contreras expendable in a couple years? Way down the road. We don't know how Jefferson Carroll is going to play out. Let's see him get some ABs in spring training and get some playing time in spring training and work that way and get his shoulders stronger. We are way, way too far away from that. But maybe in a couple years. Maybe it's a different position change or such. So Craig Yoho, going back to a couple prospects here, Craig Yoho, I would fully expect for him to be back or to be on the Major League club if he's not on opening day at some point this year. Jefferson Carroll, probably not this year, but definitely keep that name though too. Know that name for the next few years. Pat Murphy loves the guy. He loves the guy. And I think he's maybe potentially going to be a player for this team and, a big-time player for this team in the next few years. MLB Network actually spent some time with the Brewers yesterday and talked to some of the players and coaching staff. Quick update on Brandon Woodruff. There's some talk that he could be ready to go big league club end of April. So we're talking about maybe finally getting to see. I got to imagine when Brandon Woodruff gets out on that field for the first time in a major league ballpark in a regular season game, those butterflies and emotions have to be, I mean, they got to be up there. He's going to be just like a nervous Nelly, for crying out loud. But good for him. He's working his way back, and the Brewers are being patient with him. And right now, when you look at, some of the pitching moves that they made, especially in the starting department, they can be patient. But we're talking about maybe at the end of April, possibly here. Let's hear a little bit from Brandon Woodruff when MLB Network talked with him a little bit yesterday. This was from Brian Kelly, audio courtesy from the MLB Network.
Well, thank you so much. It was Brandon Woodruff, who is throwing a live baseball game tomorrow. That's exciting, Brandon. How is your shoulder? Tell us about the surgery and your comeback.
It's doing good. Relatively easy surgery, from what I learned coming out from Dr. Meister. And but I knew going in that the rehab was going to be long and it was going to be tedious, and just going through the subscap injury in 23 kind of prepared me for this rehab. And you know what? I'm at 17 months as I'm sitting here post-surgery talking to you right now. So it's, thankfully I'm in a good spot. I'm where I need to be at this point. Mm-hmm. And the ticket is just to keep plugging along day to day and see where we're at. So.
Now, the Brewers are known for their pitching lab. They've had it for years. They've been ahead of things for a long time. What type of things are you looking at as far as your velo, your spin, your snap, biomechanics? What are you looking at?
If you want me to be completely honest, when it comes to all that, I learned how to pitch, and I was very fortunate to be able to throw into Game 7 of the NLCS in 2018, early in my career. And pitching in big playoff games, I think, really helped me learn how to pitch in pressure moments. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the numbers and stuff, I think I just objectively look at myself and how do I get the best out of myself. It's all about recovering day to day. I worry about what's going to happen today. I worry about what I'm going to do in there today to get ready for tomorrow's game, because I've learned with these injuries, it's fragile. The game can be taken away from you. For me right now, 17 months has been a long time. So right. I take it day to day and worry about recovery and go from there.
In 2022, we do top 10 right now. We have the shredder, which is our objective methodology. We have our own metrics. You're number 5, which is a big number for pitchers. Do you think you can get back there?
100%. I have no doubt that I'll make a full recovery. It just takes time. Gosh, all that work you put in to honestly get to the moment where I'll be nervous as all get out tomorrow for this minor league game. Yeah. First game action back, but it's a process and I understand it. It's going to take time. I have no doubt that I'll make a complete full recovery and get back to the pitcher I know I can be. And I'm excited, and it's a journey, and I'm looking forward to kind of getting to that finish line.
All right, so that's audio courtesy from MLB Network. Big day today for Brandon Woodruff playing in that minor league game. So, I mean, I think everybody, fans, Brewers, Brandon Woodruff himself, teammates, coaches, they're going to be dialed into that and hoping that he comes out of this, feeling good and his stuff looks good and everything kind of just continues on that path moving forward, that he's going to be ready to go maybe by the end of April. So, I mean, if Brandon Woodruff gets close to returning to form, to what he was, and I mean, that's kind of like a free agent signing in itself, because you didn't have the guy at all last year. But if you get like 90% of Woody, like Brandon Woodruff, if you get 95% of that is such a huge boost within half that, I mean, I hope we have a good problem when we get to that point when he's ready to go. And if they try him out as a starter, I hope we get to that point where we've got an issue where it's like, okay, we got 6 dudes in the starting rotation. Do you do a little piggyback start? Do you go the 6-man rotation? Does somebody move to the bullpen or whatever the case may be? I hope we have that problem. I hope we're talking about that. What do you do? Because that means it's a good problem to have, and it means you got some quality pitchers over there. So, but I'm excited to see how Woodruff comes out of this later on today. Hopefully everything's on a positive note. But think about 17 months. It's been 17 months since we've seen Brandon Woodruff out on the field. We're talking about a year and a half. Doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has been that long. And this was a guy, before he went out, you're talking about one of the better pitchers in Major League Baseball. And if we get him back, the Brewers get him back, even just like close to that, man. Yeah, that's what an amazing story it would be. All right, let's take a quick break. We got some more text to get to coming up about some free agent signings and such. Packers fans, your thoughts on what the Packers did yesterday? Who is maybe one player you wish the team would have targeted yesterday that signed with somebody else? Or who's a player that's still out there that you hope the Packers get? Thinking about new floors? Well, make your vision a reality at Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire. Whether it's soft, luxurious carpets or maybe some tiles or luxury vinyl planks, they've got the perfect style for every space. Their huge selection, unbeatable prices, and expert installation make upgrading your home easy. Not sure where to start? No problem, because their flooring specialists are there to help every step of the way. Their entire team will work with you from step one to the finish line, helping you find the perfect floor for your home and budget. Don't forget, if you happen to find a better deal elsewhere, they will match or beat the competition. So stop dreaming and start designing. Visit Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire today and step into something beautiful. Coming up in about 35 minutes or so, we'll talk some Badgers. We got Badger hoops. Talking with RJ Cardinal. We got some Badger hockey to hit up as well. We had Badger Pro Day last week. So all things Badgers coming up in about 30, 35 minutes or so with Mr. RJ Cardinal. Let's catch up on a few texts on our Shoe Doctors bullpen line this morning. Quite a few of you talking about the free agency and such. Looks like the majority of you are good with it. You're happy with it. Maybe you're. We got one texter say, "I'm just happy to see that the Packers spent." Well, I mean, Packers spent last year though too, right? So, and Packers actually top 10 in free agent spending this year. So, I mean, if you just wanted your team to spend money, they've done that so far. Another texter says, under the radar signings that I think will be a big benefit for this team. Excited about the offensive lineman signing, and I think they've gotten a lot of depth at that position and makes sense to go get a corner that can play nickel and the outside. More versatility with these signings. Then we've got Jim on the texting line saying, I'll admit I'm not too familiar with these two, but everything that I've read about these guys seems like they're solid signings for the Packers. Always looking to upgrade the offensive line and protect Jordan Love and improve the running game, and getting some more help for Jeff Hafley in the secondary for his defense. Hopefully now they can find another pass rusher and maybe a veteran wide receiver. Another texter says, I definitely would be intrigued if the Packers signed Tyler Boyd in free agency to give him a 1-year prove-it deal. Same with Dante Fowler as just a pass rush specialist. Then we've got Matt that says, it seems like the NFC North has been pretty darn active in free agency so far. Should be a heck of a division to watch this year. I mean, yeah, you look at, Vikings re-signing Murphy last night, then they get Allen this morning. The Bears have completely overhauled their defensive line or offensive line, but also adding to their defensive line. Detroit getting DJ Reed. They lose Carlton Davis, but then they get DJ Reed. And then, of course, what the Packers have done so far. It's this division, it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a dogfight. And there's not going to be an easy win. I think the biggest question now is going to be, when we look at the division overall, is JJ McCarthy going to be the quarterback for the Vikings? Are they going to bring in a veteran? Is it going to be Daniel Jones, or is it just going to be a veteran to be a backup to JJ McCarthy? What's the Vikings' plan at quarterback? I think that's maybe one of the last big questions remaining, is to see what their plan is. It sure seems like the Rodgers and Vikings chat has kind of died down a little bit. Now, that's not to say that maybe it won't happen or anything like that, but it seems like it's kind of died down a little bit. And the Giants have done a ton of moves. I mean, they've kind of revamped their whole secondary. Maybe they should have tried to keep Xavier McKinney last year. I don't know if some of these moves are to try to tell, hey, A-Raj, or see these moves that we're making, get on over here. But the NFC North, though, all four teams have definitely made some some good moves in the first 24 hours, a little less than 24 hours of NFL free agency. And we knew this was one of the best divisions in football last year. We knew it was probably going to be one of the best divisions in football this upcoming season. And it's going to be tighter. It's definitely going to be tighter, I think. And it's going to be some big time matchups and some dog fights here. Even Chicago, I mean, you got to tip your cap. I hate saying this. It bugs me to say this, but tip of the cap to the Bears, because, you get Ben Johnson as your head coach. That's great, but also you need to make sure you put him in position to succeed and your young quarterback to succeed. And what do? You completely overhaul your offensive line. And I mean, they've done that. They've brought in some pass rushers, so it allows you to have more flexibility with that draft pick, that first-round draft pick. And that's where, for the longest time, too, like for Green Bay, I don't want to speak for every fan because maybe not every fan feels this way, but, when you are active in free agency and when you make moves in free agency and you sign guys, it allows you to have the flexibility when it comes to your draft. You hear these general managers all the time say, we don't draft for need. Well, okay. You're lying through your teeth a lot of the times because it's a little open to interpretation. If you got a quarterback and the top-rated player on the board is a quarterback and you don't draft for need, then technically you'd be drafting the quarterback. So technically at some points you still do draft for need. But what they're getting at is like, okay, we don't go into the draft saying, hey, we need to come out with a tackle. You want to be in that position where you have some flexibility to where, okay, if you're drafting 7th overall and you're not in that desperate situation where maybe you're kind of like, like we've seen with quarterbacks where like, oh God, we need a quarterback. And now, these guys were picked and we got to maybe reach for this guy and grab him here. And I think that was kind of the biggest complaint for Packers fans for the last few years. It just felt like when we got to the draft, because we were so inactive in free agency, it was like, all right, we got to get that guy or we got to get somebody at this position because that's our biggest need. But you use free agency to fill some of those holes, to get some impact players right away, and then it opens up possibilities when you get to the draft. Whereas maybe you didn't expect a certain player to be there when you picked, and now you kind of got like, oh, sweet, now we can get this guy now because you know what? We're covered in this area. We don't need to reach for this guy because we did this in free agency. And this is a hell of a player that's still available. Let's go get him. And that's what I like seeing what Green Bay's been doing these last couple of years, and mostly for the Goody tenure as general manager, utilizing free agency to fill your bigger holes, to fill your bigger needs, to fill spots that you're going to get an immediate impact, but then utilize the draft a little bit where you can have some flexibility and some versatility into who you're going to pick. So if there is that guy there where it's like, okay, well, it's not our biggest need, but man, this guy is really talented. We'd be an idiot not to go grab him. That's what I want to see. And I think right now for all of these teams in the NFC North, they've kind of put themselves in that position. They've put themselves in a position where when they get to the draft, and especially in that first round, where they kind of can go like, we are going to draft best available. Those teams probably aren't going to get a quarterback in their first round if they're there. But, they've made moves in free agency now where they're like, okay, yeah, we're just going to add on for depth. Now we're just going to try to add more talent for depth. And we're going to go for who we think is the best guy at that spot. And it really has the makings of this division for being a dogfight, a competitive division for the next few years. Especially when you look at, 3 of the 4 have really young quarterbacks yet, with Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy, Jordan Love, Jared Goff. He's 30, so I mean, he's going to have a few years yet. If he continues to play at a high level, he's going to be there for a few years. So I mean, you'd think right now these quarterbacks, and I know we haven't seen anything yet from JJ McCarthy. Still high on Caleb Williams and such, but as of right now, the projection is that these teams, they're going to have their quarterbacks for a long run here. And once you have that quarterback, how are you going to build around them to try to capitalize on that? So this division is going to be tough, really tough for the foreseeable future. And I think part of that too is maybe where there's a lot of angst or nervousness when it comes to free agency. When you see the teams in your division doing a lot of moves, like when you see the Vikings signing Allen, or you see the Bears trading for some offensive line and signing some offensive linemen, you're like, oh no, I need my team to counter that. I need my team to make a move to counter that, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I still think Green Bay is going to make more free agent signings. They may look for some more bargains now, or you look at the list. There's not a lot of top tier guys out there that are going to cost a ton of money. Those guys have already kind of been signed up and such. But I wouldn't be surprised now if Green Bay kind of like, okay, where can we get a guy maybe for a 1 or a 2 year deal, kind of a bargain. Veteran bargain type of player to plug in some of these other holes. I think they're still going to, and I hope they still do that. Especially when it comes to maybe finding a rotational pass rusher or a veteran wide receiver to pair with that group. Still feel like receiver is a need when you factor in that Christian Watson is going to miss a big chunk of the season. And maybe they fill that in with a veteran wide receiver. Because if we use so Greg Rosenthal, NFL.com, if we use his top 101 free agent rankings, his best available, after all these reported signings, his best available is Amari Cooper. And he's 31 years old. After that, it's you got an offensive guard, but Green Bay doesn't have a need for that anymore. Asante Samuel Jr. probably doesn't have a need for that anymore. Justin Reed, safety, no. Cam Robinson, no. You got Stephon Diggs, who's coming off an ACL. Javon Hargrave, maybe a rotational defensive lineman. But you kind of look at some of these guys who are best available for and fitting them for the Packers. These may be kind of rotational guys that are going to be on a short-term type of deal, which I hope Green Bay kind of takes advantage of that. So that's why when we, in that first hour, when we kind of looked at, some guys that are still available out there, defensive line, defensive ends, maybe a Dante Fowler is just bringing him in as your pass rush specialist. Maybe the same for a Joey Bosa. Wide receiver wise, is it a guy like a Tyler Boyd trying to bring him in for 1 year on an offense, and maybe he wants a 1 year prove it, he boosts up his numbers and he cashes in next year? Is it Elijah Moore for kind of the same reasons, but he's younger too? He's not as big. He's not going to be your big down the field guy. He's going to be a guy that you can attack over the middle, but he gets open. And he's just going to be 25 for the upcoming season. So I hope and I expect Green Bay to still go out there and sign a couple of these veterans, trying to look for some bargains, but signing these couple of veterans to fill in a couple more holes and go into the draft next month where you could, all right, we're going to go for the best player available. Still a little bit of a need in some aspects, because again, you're not going to draft a quarterback early on and such. But just so you're not handcuffed when you get to that draft. So you're not like, yeah, we gotta get a pass rusher in the first round. Yeah, especially if you don't move up and you're there and you're like, oh, and you kind of scratch. You're like, yeah, we might as well get this guy now, even though we probably didn't have like a second or third round grade on him, but we got to get a pass rusher. You don't want to handcuff yourself. Let me throw this question out there because this was on the rumor mill yesterday. And again, it's just a rumor out there. Do you trade Malik Willis? There was some talk out there that there could be some teams potentially interested in trading for Malik Willis. One, do you trade him? Two, for what value? Like, what do you need in return? Is it got to be bare minimum a second round pick, third round pick? Anything lower than a third, it's like, no, thank you. I'm not one to always say trade guys because depth, especially when it comes to a backup quarterback. But I also feel like there's a price for everything. You get a second round pick for Malik Willis and you're Goody. What do you do? Hit me up with that text. 2 in. We got one more to go. We'll be back after these news updates. Final hour on this Monday morning coming at you. Appreciate you tuning in, however, wherever you're tuning in from. Casper Classic registration is open right now, and teams flying off the shelves. If you want to get in, you got to hit me up with a text, and I can send you the link because it's only open up for our 715 Fan Cave members before we open it up to the public. So today only is when I will text it on over to you if you want to get your two-person team in for just $90 at Lake Hallie. Hit me up with a text, and I'll send you the link to get in. Big thanks to everybody who is already signed up. We've got RJ Cardinal coming up here in about 10, 15 minutes or so. We'll talk some Badger basketball with him, men's and women's men's team getting set for the Big Ten Conference tournament. Drop it down to a 5 seed so they don't get the double bye. So we'll hit that up. And the women's team is going to be looking for a new head coach. We'll talk some Badger hockey. I know Badger football also had their pro day. Was it this past Friday? So just a few days removed from that. We'll talk all things Badgers with Mr. Cardinal. Right before we went into break, I asked, there was a rumor, there was some rumblings out there, at least on the socials yesterday, that could Malik Willis be a potential trade target for teams looking for some quarterbacks? And kind of a two-part question. One, would you trade him? Two, what would have to be the minimum? What would have to be the minimum for that? And it looks like a majority of you saying yes to trade Malik Willis. Let's go through a few of these. David says, if they could get a second-round pick in return for Malik Willis, you absolutely do that. I trust Matt LaFleur that if they were to bring in another backup quarterback, that he could do some of the same things he did with Malik Willis. Another texter, this is from Ben saying, as much as Malik Willis helped out this ball club last year, I think if you can get an early day 2 pick for him, I think you'd be foolish not to do that, especially with him entering his final year of his contract. Another texter says, yes, I would do that if I were to at least bare minimum get a 3rd round pick. Josh says, do not trade Willis. Needed him bad last year, made the playoffs without him. We have 0 options if he's gone. We need a king's ransom to trade him, but then we're in the boat of using that pick to just get another backup. Another texter says, yes, if you can get a day 2 pick for him, that's an easy business decision. You do that. You flip the 7th rounder for him, and then you'd get an early day 2 pick in return. That just makes too much sense to not do. All right, so it looks like a very wide majority so far saying you do if you get a day 2 pick and nothing lower than a day 2 pick. Nothing lower than a day 2, which I'm probably in the same boat. I think if you don't get anything higher, I mean, anything past a 3rd, I'd be like, thanks, but no thanks. Because I'm not one of those, like, if a guy plays well, I'm not like one of those that is like instantly turn him around for a draft pick. It's good to have depth. It's okay to have that. It's okay if you're so deep that you got, guys who are pretty talented, as your bench players and such. So I don't want to be in a situation where, knock on wood, hopefully it doesn't happen, that if Jordan Love gets hurt and we got to have extended time with the backup quarterback, I want a decent option. I want a good option. Okay? I want that. And I don't want to be in a situation like, I don't know, let's say 2013, when it was like Seneca Wallace, after Rodgers went down, it was like Seneca Wallace for 2 plays, and then it was Scott Tolzien, and then had to bring back Matt Flynn. I don't want to get into that situation. If you have a serviceable backup quarterback, a really good backup quarterback, that's a good thing to have. But I would agree, if some team is willing to offer you a day 2 pick, a 2nd round pick, boy, that would be hard to say no. That'd really be hard to say thanks, but no thanks. And I think you would probably have to make that move. Anything past day 2, I'd probably say no. Probably say no. A couple more texts to come through here about the free agent signings here. I absolutely loved what Green Bay did yesterday. What grinds my gears, though, on this Grind My Gears Tuesday, is Packer fans complaining about the two signings that the Packers did. All the Packers did was beef up their offensive line and add more depth to their cornerback position. They checked off a lot of boxes. Stop being ungrateful, Packers fans. Another Grind My Gears text. This one is from Kevin. Kevin says, what grinds my gears is seeing all the Packers fans complaining on social media about the two free agents they signed. Why they're probably complaining about it is because they have no idea who the heck they are. Granted, I don't know a whole lot about them, but that's why I trust the people who do know about them. And everything that I've heard seems like they are solid players that will help the Packers win a bunch of games this year. Stop being entitled town, Packers fans. Another texter says, definitely not. This one is from Greg. Excuse me. Greg says, definitely not the names I was expecting the Packers to sign. But overall, when you take a deep breath, it makes a ton of sense. They added another offensive lineman to help protect Jordan Love and open up the running game for Josh Jacobs. And they added another corner that gives you some versatility and more depth. You have to give a thumbs up for Brian Gutekunst for being active again in free agency. I agree with you. I would still like to see maybe a pass rusher and a wide receiver, and I feel like Green Bay is going to do that in the later rounds of free agency. Another texter here says, this one's from Chad. Chad says, big thumbs up on the two free agent signings. I love that they're investing in their offensive line, and I love that they gave Jeff Hafley another corner. The only concern I have with the new corner Hobbs is his injury history, but I saw a lot of Raider fans online talking about how much they really liked him. It was just that he couldn't stay healthy. Yeah, talked a little bit about that in the first hour or two. I had some Raiders fans telling me that they really liked the guy. It's just he couldn't stay healthy. I had one person tell me nose for the ball and good run defender and such. So hopefully he can stay healthy. I know there was a clip too with Nate Hobbs when he was on Max Crosby's podcast. Was it last year or maybe a couple years ago? But he talked about how much he loves Rich Bisaccia. And one of the quotes that he said in it was, I shed a tear when I found out he was leaving Rich Bisaccia because that was the first man other than my uncle that I had like a father-son bond in some way. He was like a male role model in my life that I didn't have for a long time. You know, you hear all this positive stuff from players on Rich Bisaccia, and I know a lot of Packers fans have been down on Rich Bisaccia for special teams wise and such, especially this past year. But I mean, is Rich Bisaccia, how much you factor in the benefit wise if he's attracting free agents? Josh Jacobs. And if Nate Hobbs turns out to be a really good player, you hear these players that just sing the praises for a guy like Rich Bisaccia. I mean, how much do you balance that if he's a coach that can attract some of those players to come over to your team? I mean, I don't think I've read one negative thing or heard one negative thing about the guy. And I saw this quote from Max Crosby. This was from last year about the Packers' new corner, Nate Hobbs. Can't say the one word he says in there. You see that blank, starts with an M, mother blank, right there? He's the best nickel in football. That's Max Crosby talking about Nate Hobbs. All right. Hopefully I'll play. Oh, and then I saw this picture. I was excited. This was from 2 years ago. Max Crosby, Nate Hobbs, and Damian Lillard sitting next to each other at a game. All right. Only one missing in that from Wisconsin is Max Crosby. And that ain't happening. So, Here's some of the details for Nate Hobbs's contract. 4-year base value 48, 16 signing bonus, salaries of 1.2 million, 1.8 million, 9.7. I mean, this is a typical Packers contract. We're getting back to the typical Packers contracts where the only guaranteed portions are the signing bonus portions. So, I mean, this outside of the quarterback contracts, this looks like a 2-year deal, and then we'll see. Especially with the increase in like the signing bonuses, 1.2 or base salaries, 1.2, 1.8. Then it jumps up to a 905 and a 9.7. A couple of years, then we'll see. So, a couple more texts here. What grinds my gears is again another one kind of calling out some Packers fans. This one's from Ben. What grinds my gears is the Packers, is Packer fans complaining about the signing of an offensive lineman and a defensive back. One was definitely a need with the defensive back. Two, it helps settle things and answer some questions on the offensive line and creates depth. Did everybody not see what happened in the Eagles game when we had one injury? So, all right, keep those coming. We'll get to those coming up a little bit later on. All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to switch gears and we're going to talk some Badgers with Mr. R.J. Cardinal. We got the Big Ten Conference Tournament starting up here soon. We know the Badgers do not get the double bye, but they're awaiting the winner between the Gophers and Northwestern. If they win that, then they move on to play UCLA, who is the 4th seed. We'll talk about what happened on Saturday's regular season finale, Senior Day at the Kohl Center. Talk about the women's team now looking for a new head coach. And we'll talk some Badger hockey as well with Mr. RJ Cardinal. So we'll take a quick break, switch gears, but keep those texts coming. All right, keep them coming. We'll try to get to all of them. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
The Dan Kasper Show will be right back.
So she has this habit of tapping her forefinger lightly against her lips whenever she's thinking about what she wants to say next.
It's never what you expect.
I've come to understand that when she does it, she's not just thinking, she's really listening with affection.
It's rarely the same thing twice.
Like, my thoughts matter enough for her to pause and really reflect before she speaks.
And it's always magical.
At Lasker Jewelers, we've started thousands of conversations with customers by asking,
"Tell me what you love about her."
She treats each exchange as something worthy of thought, worthy of love.
And once we know
We can show,
perfect piece for her, she'll love. That's the Lasker way.
and for 100 years, it's made Lasker's the easiest place to shop for diamonds and jewelry in America.
My sister and I are humbled that people from around the world have come to our family's stores
To buy just the right one.
for just the right one.
It's such a profound sign of respect and love.
I'm Nicole.
And I'm Liz.
Before you ask her,
Lasker.
Join Mark Patrick's seminars and stop smoking now without cravings, irritability, weight gain, or your money back.
Totally changed my life.
It's amazing.
I don't have any cravings.
You want to quit, but have found it impossible? This is the thing for you. I have absolutely no craving. It's the darndest thing I have ever seen in my life.
It's not for entertainment. It's for results.
Do it. It works, period.
You've tried everything else. You need to come and try this.
Early bird special, only $49.99 guaranteed. Because don't just cut down, but stop smoking. In addition, lose all the weight 100% guaranteed with Mark Patrick seminars. Let hypnosis destroy unwanted cravings and lose the weight. That's right. Seminar Thursday, March 27th at the Best Western Plus Eau Claire Conference Center in Eau Claire. Weight loss seminar, 5:30 p.m. Stop smoking seminar, 8 p.m. Registration 30 minutes before seminar. Sign up at markpatrickseminars.com today.
Need an oil change or some new tires? What about some quality used auto parts that don't break the bank? Hey, get to ASAP Used Auto Parts today. They keep your ride running strong with fast, affordable oil changes, a great selection of new tires, and top quality used auto parts. Whether you're fixing up your daily vehicle or upgrading your ride, they've got just what you need at prices that make sense. Don't wait. Stop by ASAP Used Auto Parts today at 1330 Menominee Street in Eau Claire and get back on the road today.
America is kept safe because the Army National Guard responds, protects, and supports our nation when it needs them most. The Army National Guard responds to disasters such as wildfires and floods. They protect us with missile defense, cybersecurity, and civilian support teams for chemical, biological, and radiological hazards. Be there for your community and your country. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service. Sponsored by the Wisconsin Army National Guard. Aired by the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association and this station.
Easy moving and storage, making life easier. Moving cross town or just moving on out, efficient and affordable, that's what we're all about. In the Chippewa Valley since 89, any move of any size, we don't waste time. Locally owned, we always pick up the phone. Easy moving and storage, making life easier.
Protect yourself from the harsh sun with Sonesta retractable awnings and solar screens from Asher Laston Exteriors. Create a beautiful outdoor oasis with the simple push of a button with our remote control, retractable awnings, and solar screens. Get outside this summer and enjoy your patio or deck. Sonesta retractable awnings and solar screens protect you and your family from the harsh sun. Take advantage of amazing savings this month with up to 20% off your entire shading project from Asher's. Sonesta retractable awnings and screens have over 150 fabrics to choose from and the largest sizes available, so you can create shade to match your home and style. Sonesta awnings are also the only Miami-Dade approved awning, so you can rest at ease knowing your awning is safe and secure. Connect with the Asher team today and request a free, no obligation consultation at goasher.com or call us at 888-GO-ASHER. Use promo code RADIO and receive up to 20% off your entire project. Plus no money down, no payments, and no interest for up to 12 months. Call Asher's today at 888-GO-ASHER or request an appointment for a free estimate online at goasher.com.
Broadcasting live from the TDS Sports Talk 105.1 studios, it's the Dan Kasper Show.
Looking for fresh, affordable, and convenient? You'll find it all at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. From fresh produce to top quality meats and everything else in between, they make shopping easy. Need a quick dinner solution? Check out their delicious grab-and-go meals. Hosting a get-together, their bakery and deli have got you covered. Plus, with weekly deals and friendly service, there's always more to love. And don't forget about their fuel savers that help you save money at the pump. Shop smart. Shop Hy-Vee. Speaking of smart, we've got our good friend, Mr. RJ Cardinal, joining us here this morning. How you doing, RJ?
Pretty good. How are you?
Oh, not bad, man. Not bad. Hey, we got lots to catch up on, so let's dive right into it. First off, that game on Saturday, the final regular season game, Badgers and Penn State, senior day. I mean, it cost the Badgers a double bye in the Big Ten Conference Tournament. It dropped them six spots in the rankings. What the heck happened, man?
I just didn't show up.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how else to describe it. And it's like they rolled out and got a 13-point lead and thought they were set. So it's really one of those not a clue what happened in that game. And afterwards, when you have Greg Gard come out and say, we need to find our fight again. That's not a good thing when your coach calls you out for not having fight in a game you had everything to play for, and Penn State, no matter what they did, their season was ending that day. And they are not a good basketball team. So, it's just an absolute letdown to the end of your regular season that hopefully isn't indicative of what's going to be happening moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, you just kind of, I mean, not the way you want to go into a postseason with a game like that, and you lose the double bye essentially. How big really is it to lose the double bye in this, RJ? I mean, there would have been a 4 seed if they would have won. They're the 5 seed if they beat either Minnesota or Northwestern. They'll play UCLA and such. Is that a big factor, or was it just you don't want to go into the postseason losing a game like that against Penn State?
You absolutely. It's not one of those like, hey, it's good they lost. And it's really one of those that's starting to be concerning. When, I mean, they went to the zone and you never tried to attack it. Like, the one way we've seen the Badgers like pull away is attacking the hoop, getting to the foul line, and taking more attempts than the opposing team makes. I mean, you had 17 free throws to their 19. You legitimately went away from anything that we've seen you do all year. It's the same thing we saw happen against Oregon, but Oregon was pressing and causing turnovers and all that. We saw cold shooting against Michigan State. So the last 3 losses in the last 5 games have all been done in different ways. I guess really the last 2, Michigan State and Penn State, are a little more concerning because the entire team went cold and you abandoned attacking the hoop and getting to the foul line. That has been what we've seen for most of the year. So hopefully this becomes a reality check, especially against Penn State, a team that's not even going to get invited to the NIT, the CBI, the new CBC, whatever other tournament out there that lesser teams who can have a shot at playing longer have available to them. So, just an embarrassing loss on your home court for a team that hasn't won in Madison since 1995.
And I was looking at Joe Lenardi's bracketology after that game too. I mean, that kind of, according to his bracketology, we'll see if it plays out that way. But that loss took him out of having, first round games in Milwaukee too, RJ.
Yeah, I think was he the one who dropped him to a 5th seed?
Yeah, or 4 or 5 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and now they're projected at a 4 or 5, not playing in Milwaukee. We saw the 5-12 matchup last year and how well that went for Wisconsin. So it was looking like a team that had the potential to make a Sweet 16 for the first time in a little bit. And now we're back to looking at a team that will they make it out of the first weekend that we've seen on repeat for the past couple of seasons. Now, is this a Greg Gard fireable offense? I don't think so. Like, it's hard to coach through cold shooting and in the scheme of which you're in now, where there is an emphasis on a more open style of shooting rather than the old strict swing of playing inside out, getting to the rim and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's still a part of that game. It just seems it's able to be abandoned a little quicker when you're down a lot more, when you're in the offense that, quite frankly, everybody wanted to see because we need to catch up with the times. And you can abandon going inside because if you're a higher volume 3-point team, chances are they're going to go in, but it just hasn't happened.
Yeah. So, hey, I want to, stay with basketball, but switch to women's basketball. We found out that they're going to be looking for a new head coach. And this is something, for a while now, they just haven't been able to find that coach, RJ. How attractive of a job is this? How big of a job is this for maybe Chris McIntosh to try to fill? And I think, is the biggest thing that this new head coach has to figure out is how to keep the in-state talent in state?
Absolutely. And it's going to be hard because of what we see, basically since Lisa Stone hasn't been here, I guess. Maybe that's where we're at. But it's a team who guess we thought when Marissa Mosley came in, due to the pedigree she had and how well she had been at, because you went from Lisa Stone to Bobby Kelsey, who kind of tanked, to Sipsis, who was trying to bring stuff around. But, I mean, yeah, it's been since 2010, so we're going on 15 years, 14 seasons since anything good has happened, I guess.
Yeah.
But that run of Jane Albright to Lisa Stone was a pretty good, some pretty good years for Wisconsin, for a team that since their inception hadn't made the NCAA had only made the NCAA tournament once before Jane Albright got there. But it's a team that should be relevant in the Big Ten and hasn't been for, like I said, 14 seasons. So it has the potential to be a sleeping giant, because, I mean, we've seen a lot of talent leave this state and go do well at other programs. So I don't know if it's because the head coaches haven't been getting in with the Wisconsin coaches and kind of getting the program in the minds of the Wisconsin coaches as well as the top tier players in the state. But I think you need a coach who understands this state and can start appealing to the juniors and seniors, like right now, and being like, we need to make this program about this state, because there's enough talent here that if you can get a few of the top girls to come here, and then find some talent from surrounding states, or pick it up from elsewhere, because I mean, there is some talent on this roster, but we've seen too many of the women leave, whether it be for a mental health break, retiring from basketball due to, I mean, really, it just seems like mental abuse from the coaching staff, and that can't be overlooked either. That initially it was announced Marissa Mosley was fired, and then that was walked back, and she was given the opportunity to resign. And from some things I was reading, that also lets Wisconsin, as they continue their internal investigation, or maybe now stop it, allows them to not release the findings of it if she resigned. So she's protecting her own career as well there, for anybody who wants to hire her. But I mean, we've also seen a lot of the times where Marissa Mosley didn't have press conferences or anything like that. And when she did, sometimes she put her foot in her mouth. And it'll just be interesting to see where this goes and who's a perfect fit. I don't know. And it's one of those I've seen, like some D3 coaches thrown out there, some other coaches who at least have who are from Wisconsin, have ties to the state. And like, I honestly, I don't know enough about women's basketball to start throwing names out there, but it needs to be somebody who, now granted, we have an AD who doesn't believe in nepotism within, hey, you're from the state, you're a Badger, you're whatever, even though that's how he landed where he is, who doesn't believe just because you went to Wisconsin or from Wisconsin, you deserve to be at Wisconsin. And honestly, it just like there's a Packer way, a Raider way, a Patriot way, or, go down the list. There is a Wisconsin way. And I mean, you can just look at the Wisconsin women's hockey team to know the Wisconsin way works in sports. You can look at the men's program, the men's football team, up until recently, when you win 9 games a year and go to a bowl game. The Wisconsin way works, whether people thought it did or not. The basketball program, men's basketball, Bo Ryan worked his dues. Dick Bennett worked his dues. Greg Gard did his dues within the state, and the basketball program is a model of consistency. Like, whether you like it or not, the team makes the NCAA tournament, and that brings in money and that brings in eyes, whether the people want to say we need to fire him or not. As long as he's getting to the NCAA tournament, you'd be dumb to just get rid of him. I think Tom Izzo said it the best when people were asking him about Fran McCaffrey. Be careful what you wish for. You have to appreciate what you have, because we've seen a lot of football programs around us fall because they got rid of something. And if you don't think that was about Paul Chryst, just by him saying what he does, Tom Izzo does everything deliberately. If you appreciate the opportunity and then mention a football program near you, I'm going to go ahead and say he was talking about Wisconsin. But it's one of those. Hopefully, you don't rely on some national firm to tell you this is the up and comer. Use your own brain. It's just because somebody says here's the best up and comer doesn't mean that's the perfect fit for Wisconsin. There's a way to go about rebuilding Wisconsin into what we had under Jane Albright, which was a competitive, relevant Big Ten basketball team. And hopefully we can get that with the new hire, whoever it is. And I just hope that person understands the culture of Wisconsin.
You kind of answered the next thing I was going to bring up is, like, should they look at somebody who has a Wisconsin connection? I was looking at some of the articles out there. Popular one you mentioned, D3, was Brad Fisher at UW Oshkosh and the success that he's had. You look at UW Green Bay with Kayla over there in her first year. She was a Badger assistant for a few years, but UW Green Bay is her alma mater. So, would you be able to pry her away over there too? So, yeah, maybe you look at the D3 route, because these are coaches that are familiar with in-state talent mostly.
Yeah, and who knows how that translates, because they're not necessarily dealing with the top tier who are leaving for D1 programs, but they at least have a culture built where they have a connection with the coaches, like you said. So I'm not sure how that's going to translate into recruiting outside of the state, but it'll definitely probably carry some weight of somebody who knows the high school ranks of girls basketball in this state, who has an immediate connection. But like I said, there's some other, I think there are some coaches out there who are from the state and are coaching at like the D2 or D1 level as well. So, I mean, I really think if you get into a realm of somebody who at least has a connection to the state and not necessarily the UW, I think you're going to be better off. But yeah, so I mean, wherever it's coming from, somebody who understands this state and the girls basketball in general in this state is going to have a leg up over a lot of other people who have to come in and learn what it's all about.
Because it is possible to be. I mean, you look at UW Green Bay, right? I mean, the history that they've had for women's basketball. By the way, they're playing in the Horizon League championship game in a couple hours. They're 28-5 again this year. So, I mean, you can win in this state with a D1 basketball program.
Absolutely, and in the Horizon League, and they've made runs in the NCAA tournament before.
Yeah,
so it's definitely doable at a not flagship institution. Kind of crazy how that works out. How you can get outworked by one of the smaller schools in the state, and probably if you ever played them, maybe get embarrassed by them. So yeah, it's kind of it can happen in the state. And yeah, like I just need to see relevancy, like, and it's been more focused on a national kind of recruiting basis rather than focusing on, a Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, like almost every other sport here has been for a long time. But especially with the basketball talent in that area. Like, you don't have to go far to find good talent to play Division I basketball from Madison. So the state, Illinois and Minnesota are pretty good basketball talent-rich states, not just for the men's side, but women's side as well. Because I mean, you see a lot of girls who are nationally recruited from all three of those states, and if you can start getting in on just those three, I think you'll be able to rebuild this team really quickly and see who you can get to stay. Because there is currently some talent on this roster. I forget who it was, but it was just named first team All Big Ten, and then first team All Big Ten defense as well. That Williams? Maybe? Yeah, like I said, I mean, I don't follow it enough to actually make intelligent conversations on certain things. But yeah, there's talent on this team. So hopefully a new coach can keep some of that talent, as well as build on and bring in some in-state talent and more local talent to Wisconsin.
Hey, speaking of, with rosters and talent and such, the men's hockey team, their season, they gave Ohio State a lot though over the weekend, right? I mean, they made it difficult on the Buckeyes there, but it's the first losing season of Mike Hastings' career. Looking at this program going forward, I know we've talked about this and you've talked about it. The talent has left, and I know we had an Altoona kid that was with the Badgers now going to sign his 2-year deal with the Pittsburgh Penguins, Daniel Latch and such. But the future of this program going forward, last year exceeded a ton of expectations. This year, Mike Hastings' first losing season. Where's your feeling at with this program going forward after this year?
Well, moving forward, I need to see a lot faster start. They lost some games they shouldn't have. And I mean, you can just go look at how some of the teams earlier in the season racked up their losses rather than wins. Then near the end of the season, it's almost like they put everything they had into that middle run where they were earning points every weekend. And I think some of it just all came out to a point where the goaltending and the offense was just done. But yeah, like you said, 4-1 win Friday. They were pretty darn close to winning in regulation on Saturday. Missed a kind of wide open net to seal it. But yeah, it ended up being a overtime loss on Saturday and a 3-2 loss after you were up 2-0 on Sunday. So yeah, gave them a run. Well, I mean, like I said, I would much rather have played Michigan. Penn State swept Michigan over the weekend at Michigan, so they moved on to the final, whatever, if they're still calling. I don't know what they call the Big Ten Final Four, because the Frozen Four is the NCAA's. Final Four was, or whatever they called the WCHA, and yeah, it's a disappointment, yes. But I mean, you had well over half your roster was a turnover this year, and hopefully with some of the recruiting that I've seen of guys coming in, you'll be much like most of Mike Hastings' teams, older freshmen, so players with experience, and hopefully you can get them clicking a little quicker offensively than you did this past season, and maybe have some more NHL talent coming on in as well.
And then on the women's side, they'll find out, who they play, either Clarkson or Boston University after this past weekend in the WCHA final face-off. They beat Minnesota Duluth and they beat the Gophers here. Then we're already talking about, next week, the Frozen Four for the NCAA. So, I mean, I don't know what else we could say about this program that we haven't already said, RJ. It's like it's the Badger women's team and just the rest of the field at this point.
Yeah, and I mean that as we talked last week, that Duluth game kind of played out the same way it did the last time they played in Duluth, where Duluth was kind of packing the defensive end to limit the scoring of the Badgers. They pulled it out 3-1. Minnesota upset Ohio State, so Badgers got to play the Gophers again, and I guess they play a little better in the state of Minnesota. Wisconsin pulled out a 4-3 win. I believe there was like 40 some odd seconds left when the Badgers scored to go ahead 4-3 in the third. So it was another good weekend for Wisconsin. Moving on to play Clarkson or BU. That'll be at LeBron Arena this weekend. So, or next weekend? Next weekend. No,
this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. It's still a great season going on here, and hopefully whoever you end up playing, you'll be able to breeze past and take on the winner of Minnesota and Colgate and in the Frozen Four. So there's a good chance you see a bunch of WCHA teams in there, because Duluth and Ohio State are on the other side of the bracket. We'll see what happens there. Let's see. The third seed there is Cornell. And then, you have Minnesota, Colgate on the other side of our side of the bracket. So if you win, you'll play the winner of that game. And, hopefully we're seeing a Frozen Four for this Badgers team, because I mean, when you're 35-1-2, if you're not there, that I would consider it a letdown of a season.
Mm-hmm. All right, RJ, before I let you go, it's a Big Ten Conference tournament.
I'd have a hard time right now picking against Michigan State, because however they're getting about it, they're doing a pretty good job this year, and you can never count out a now healthy Illinois. So I think they've kind of proven that. I wish I could say as the Badgers, but let's go dark horse, and I'll say Illinois ends up being the Big Ten champions.
All right, they're a scary team, I think, for where they're seated at, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
he's RJ Cardinal. But good stuff as always, buddy. We appreciate the time, man, and enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch up with you again next week. Okay, bud?
Sounds good. We will talk to you then.
You got it. There you go. RJ Cardinal joining us here this morning. Before we take a break, Vikings making some major moves in free agency this morning. We mentioned they got Allen, defensive lineman from the Commanders. The Commanders released him, and it was reported this morning that the Vikings signed Jonathan Allen, but now they're going to be signing Javon Hargrave pending his release from the 49ers. And they also signed a guard, Will Freeze, from the Colts. So yesterday they signed Ryan Kelly, the center, from the Colts. They got themselves a guard, 5 years, $88 million. Jonathan Allen, and now Hargrave, beefing up the offensive line and the defensive line. So Minnesota's making some moves. Man, this NFC North. I think now I'm in the boat. I want, let's see what else Green Bay has in store. What else can they do now? Just maybe add some more defensive help. So defensive pressure. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back with some picks and predicts coming up after these quick words. Wrapping things up with some picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room in Eau Claire. Looking for somewhere to catch some of these hoops games, baseball coming up. It's best time of year, right? March and April, best time of the sports year. It's got to be. Looking for somewhere to catch some of these games, go visit our good friends at the Elbow Room, located right next to the Banbury Place in Eau Claire. Let's start off with, well, we mentioned a little bit earlier, UW Green Bay in the Horizon League Championship game. Purdue Fort Wayne taking them on. That's actually in 2 hours. It's on ESPN2 if you want to check it out. UWGB, let's go. UW Green Bay picking up the win. Let's do we got some more conference tournament games going on the men's side. We've got Gonzaga taking on number 19 St. Mary's. The Zags are actually favoring this one. I'm going to go St. Mary's, though. Let's go St. Mary's. So, is there anybody else? Syracuse, Florida State. Yeah, give me FSU. Give me Florida State. Arizona State at Kansas State. I'm going to ride with Kansas State in this one. Pittsburgh at Notre Dame. I'll go Pitt. And then Cincinnati at Oklahoma State. Give me Cincinnati. Let's do, well, we only got 4 games on the NBA schedule. Brooklyn at Cleveland. Cleveland. Washington at Detroit. Detroit. Clippers at the Pelicans. Clippers. Bucks at the Pacers. I think the Bucks end their 2-game losing streak and pick up a win on the road against the Pacers. A big game for the Bucks in terms of some positioning and standings in the Eastern Conference. So those are your picks and predicts, again, brought to you by the Elbow Room in Eau Claire. Don't forget, too, you can pre-sign up for our bracket challenge at sportstalk1051.com. Just click on the 715 Fan Cave tab. And then scroll on down to the bottom and sign up. So when Selection Sunday is here this coming Sunday and the brackets are revealed, you can start to make your selections. So get over there, sign up, and then partake in the bracket challenge that we'll have over there. So kind of day 2 of NFL free agency, and we'll see if the Packers make any more moves. We know the Vikings have been busy this morning, really beefing up their offensive line and defensive line. So we'll see if the Packers make any more moves, maybe finding some defensive line help, maybe finding some veteran wide receivers to help out. So we'll see. Maybe other teams within the division, the Lions doing more, Bears, can they do some more? So, and then maybe we'll find out where Rodgers is going to play today, if anybody even cares about that. So, but yeah, day 2, and then everything becomes official tomorrow on the 12th. So I guess technically there could still be some players that have a change of heart. We have seen that before. So, but, there is, and I'm only bringing this up because I saw somebody else say this too. And I'm not trying to poo-poo. I think these are good signings by the Vikes. I think they're smart signings. I think they're intriguing signings. But as somebody said, well, some of these guys are free agents for a reason too. I get that. I understand that. But there's more to it. That's such a blanket statement. There's other factors into it. They could still be incredibly talented players. It's just contract hits, cap hits could factor into a lot of this stuff. So it's not just talent-wise. It's a bunch of other stuff on there too. So, all right. Yeah. Catching up on a couple more texts here. This is from David. David says, I hope the Packers make more moves today and get another defensive lineman and wide receiver and maybe another linebacker. Another texter here says, I'm hoping for Amari Cooper. I hope the Packers can bring him in on a 1-year cheap deal. Then another texter says, or asks, I should say, do you think they can trade Jair Alexander for either an edge rusher or a wide receiver? I don't think they can. Just in my opinion, I don't think they can. Yeah, kind of talked a little bit about it yesterday, but I think if at this point in time, I think Goody's just holding on to see if he can get anything in return. And I think if you can get if somebody's willing to offer you a 6th-round pick at this point in time, I think you take it. I think you try to get something in return. Otherwise, there's going to be teams just waiting for Green Bay to release him. and then they'll try their hand on the free agent market and try to convince Jair to go over there. So I don't see it. I don't see them able to flip him for a player. I could be wrong, but it's I don't see it coming. I think if you can get a pick at some point, you run with that. But interesting one. Somebody going back to the Malik Willis thing. Somebody had texted and asked, if the Packers were to trade Malik Willis, what about bringing in Trey Lance as a backup quarterback? I'll be honest, I didn't even think of that. I didn't think of that as a potential option. Interesting. Former number 3 overall pick. Yeah, I mean, at this point, Trey Lance isn't going to get a starting job. I believe him and Christian Watson spent some time together at North Dakota State too. So, intriguing. Goody says he wants more picks. Could he flip Willis for a second or third rounder and then sign somebody like a trade? I don't know. Interesting. Prediction. I think they sign one more person today. I think they'll sign at least one person today. I'll go with that prediction. It's actually today. You'll hear it later on today in our new feature that plays throughout the day, Wisconsin Sports History. A moment in Wisconsin Sports History. It was this day in 2019 when Goody signed Zadarius, Preston, Adrian Amos, and Billy Turner all within 24 hours. Remember that day? I do. We were on the air when it started just leaking through. It was like Zadarius, then it was Preston, then it was Adrian, then it was Billy Turner. It's like, what is going on here? Goody was shelling out some cash that day. All right, coming up tomorrow, we'll have stock reports, and then we'll chat about any other signings that may have happened for the Green and Gold or across the league and such. So we'll hit that up. Hopefully we're talking about a Bucks win, and then we'll kind of start to talk more about some college hoops as we get closer to Big Ten Conference Tournament and such. So we'll begin in that. So it's the most perfect, beautiful time of the sports year. So, I thought we had maybe one signing right before we got. No, I didn't mean to tease anybody over there. So, all right, DP Dannets are up next. Have yourself a fantastic rest of your day. Let's do this again tomorrow. All right, let's do this again tomorrow. Let's hopefully talk about some more free agent signings and such. Gosh, this NFC North, man, teams are making moves left and right. All right, have a good day. We'll be back at it again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Talk to you then.